Okay, cool. All right, we are live. Okay, I think that can work. So close that. All right, everyone. Cool. Got my chat open. If you're new and just jumped into the stream, I'm studying for my WGU objective assessment coming up. Tomorrow we're working on project management. So I'm working through some practice quizzes and utilizing AI tools that help me the best for these study sessions. Feel free to ask me any questions as you like. Okay. Gosh, God, fucking. I think it's about to rain here. All right. First question. A firm begins its strategic business initiative of developing a new business model that will allow the firm to develop an efficient, tailored service to its customers. To accomplish this, a firm initiates a business management project. Which aspect of project management applies to this firm's project? So, all right, ChatGPT, I almost forgot. Set you up. All right, so the viewer, what I did here on ChatGPT's side, I have them open on one side. I use whisper flow, so you'll see me not bother typing my little fingers away in the chat. I have it set up so I just have a keyboard shortcut. I can talk, and whisper flow will transcribe what I'm saying and create a transcript, and then input that transcript to whatever I have clicked. So essentially, it's whisper flow. There's a subscription service to it. It's actually pretty useful. Anytime I hit my hotkey, it essentially saves what I'm saying. And then boom. So you can see this transcript recent activity log. So every time I hit that hotkey, I have it saved. So it has the history saved. You can just close that, push that off to the side, and all I have to do is just type away. And instead of wasting time typing on a keyboard, I can just speak how I want to speak or write what I want to write, and it pops up right here. in perfect context, perfect spelling every single time. And sometimes with proper punctuation, I can say like quote, puts it in quotes, parentheses, question mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So, fun little things. Put all of that in APA style citation. Not going to work. All right, so what else I did to set up this? I already started a text. I just started a new chat. I gave it a little bit of context about what it is I'm working on right now. Okay, so it knows what class. Oh, this is content creation. Let's go back to the original chat. Fix spelling, study session setup. All right. So now here's the study session. I've already told it to search the class. Okay, so it's looking for context clues about what this class, for the competencies for the test, I need to understand and test on. Okay, and it probably did some research on some kind of study aid questions, so it probably has an idea of what the questions that are on this practice test. Can you give me an example of a practice question from the practice assessment for this class, from the research that you have just conducted? Let's see. Cool. And so, yeah, now it's queued up and ready to search the internet whenever necessary. It's got sources and everything. Cool. So now I can essentially take it out of search mode. And here's all your deep research, create an image, agent mode, connectors, and so what I essentially did was I put it in search mode, web search mode, and now I'm going to put it in study and learn. And this is my first time working in this one, so hopefully the chat in the interface already has a history of all the classes and the way I like to study. So what it's going to do now is essentially give me coaching on all the questions. So what I like to do is I just like to read through randomized questions through all the different competencies. So whatever small time frame I study in, I can get enough of the spread. So I don't like to go in order because I like to cover as much of the section of the quizzes as much as possible. So I jump around from quiz to quiz, not quiz to quiz, question to question to cover all the multiple competencies. And if you're new to WGU, essentially your courses, let's say here's my course. I've already passed this assessment, but I have this objective assessment, and essentially this class, instead of, you have all your learning material, I can go to my learning material here, but I always focus, once I've enrolled in the class, I always just focus here on all these different things. Here is based off of the learning material, and then this is what the test is going to be based off of. So if I wanted to, I can pull up here's my pre-assessment report, and this shows you how well I did on all the different competencies and its overall percentage weighting out of the 70 questions. So we're going to do the same thing. Just randomize through, practice all these different question types. All right. I'm ready to study. ChatGPT, ready. I don't need random questions. I'm going to start just word vomiting all the questions I go through on the practice assessment. Okay. Question 1. A firm begins its strategic business initiative of developing a new business model that will allow the firm to develop a efficient, tailored service to its customer. To accomplish this, the firm initiates a business management project. Which aspect of project management applies to this firm's project? So they're building an initiative. They're developing, it looks like they're building a new model to deliver efficient, tailored service to customers. So no context on what the company actually is or the firm actually does. They're just asking, they're working on developing a new business model. And this question is asking which of the project management aspects of project management applies to this specific initiative that they're doing. So you have A, regulatory concept, B, independent operations, C, external environment, and D, independent tasks. I wouldn't say A because none of the context provides any information on regulatory concept. So they're trying to just make a more efficient, tailored service to customers. So I think A is out because they're not coming down with any governmental or agency issues. There's no context related to environmental stuff. So external environment doesn't seem like it fits. So I'm thinking independent operations or independent tasks. I feel like since they're working on a business model and they already have an idea of what the business model should look like, and they're at a part where they're working on strategic business initiative, they're at an independent operations aspect, not an individual task. If they were working on like the specific business plan, I would say it's an independent task, but that's not what I'm thinking. So based off of the context and the keywords and my little understanding of what goes on behind the hood of everything, I think this is B. All right, breaking it down. No hint of laws, compliance, or governance, so toss it. Yep. A. C, external. It usually means market conditions, competition, tech trends. Again, not in the prompt. Yep. D, this sounds like just activities, but projects are more than isolated tasks, so they're structured toward a goal. So maybe. Independent operations, this is closest. Why? Because projects are temporary, independent undertakings mean to achieve a specific strategic initiative. Here a new business model. Snap point, whenever you see a strategic initiative, new model, deliver tailored services, the test is pointing to a project as a independent, goal-oriented operation, not random tasks or internal. So your instinct of B lines up with the fundamentals. Okay. I know I have the study mode clicked on, but if I go way off or if I'm not even close, you can steel man my thinking, right? And guide me to it. It doesn't have to be so vague. We can get on. I'm going to do more studying following on this tomorrow. So the core idea is to still get me to the end result question if needed. So we're not at a point where I need to be practicing and getting to the questions myself. Okay, so we're just encoding and working on fundamentals. And if I miss something, you can give me the answer outright. All right, but this is not the point of the quiz or the study session. You still need to work. Still need to work on the coaching and stuff like that. So I know this is my first time working in this mode, so I'm not quite familiar of the different tweaks of how you prompt things back to me. I know in like regular mode, you tend to give me the answer where I have to tell you, hey, don't give me the answer. We're studying here. Just kind of guide me along and then critique my thinking. But I think this framework worked pretty good. Okay. Question 5. What does Prince, all caps, 2 stand for? So this is some kind of acronym. A, projects in competitive environment. B, projects in controlled environment. C, projects insights and competencies. And D, project insights for competitiveness. Okay, so it looks like it's stealing some parts of the overall wording. So it's not singular acronym for each individual word. It's stealing a couple letters here and there. So all 4 mentioned projects are projects, so it obviously has to do with that. And then you have in or insights. Typically, so 2 of the questions, A and B, utilize the word in, blank, or blank blank. And then the other one is project insights. Without any context of this acronym, trying to figure out, you typically don't put a singular word to apply to a piece of an acronym, particularly in this set, 2 letters in the acronym, completely foreign words. So I would say A and B is out. That's typically not how we set up acronyms. So typically it's big words compressing down to make something more verbally digestible. And we're typically taking the singular letters that start off that word. But in this case, it looks like, so I'm thinking C and B fit the bill a little bit more. I'm just trying to think. But we also typically don't take letters as like in the middle of the word as well. So there's 2 separate things. I don't know. This one's going to be a random guess. Due to project management, maybe B. B makes the most sense, but I don't quite know. Project insights and competencies also like makes sense. Like that seems like a natural thing you'd want to think about when doing project management. But the way they've structured or pulled pieces out of that tag and to create an acronym, Prince 2, it doesn't make sense of like how you would utilize it like that. So give me some coaching insights for this one. Was that my initial guess? The one that I kind of randomly threw? I know I had like a lot of different thoughts rattling through my head. But when I read through, or I guessed one that just kind of made sense verbally, which one did I throw out? Cool. Yeah, the 2-letter and the IN is a total cheat, but I mean, as you've stated, this acronym comes from the UK, so they do things a little bit differently than us Americans, it seems like. But I can't give credit to how acronyms are typically set up. From my history of any acronym I've seen, usually we just take things and we just pick that first letter and somehow make it a cool word. Unless you come from the coding world and then they just make up terminology that just feels cool to the designer. All right, question 16. The following table shows the level 1 work breakdown structure, WBS for project A. There's a table. It's got 2 fields. It's got some rows. Field A of this sheet is a WBS ID section, numbered 0.1 for row 2. And then it counts 1.0 all the way to 7 for the other rows. And then it gives the description for each row. So 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 8. You have project A, project started, feasibility, design, development, manufacturing, distribution, and project completed. So those look like various descriptions of a project, and you're identifying a WBS ID to each of those phases. Which approach did the project manager use to structure the WBS? Question. A, list of deliverables. C, sequence, or B, sequence of project phases. C, list of project stakeholders. D, enumeration of functional departments. Okay. Okay. So now to word vomit this. I believe this is the list of deliverables. It's not in necessarily a list format. He's given it in a table, but these are project deliverables for all the different phases, because you have project A, assuming that's kind of the planning. Then you have the third row, project started, feasibility, design, development, manufacturing, distribution, and project completed. So you have all those different phases, and it looks like they can assign a WBS ID to each level of phase. Because let's see, you have, I guess it could be B as well, sequence of project phases, but I don't know. So now I'm thinking, okay, so the deliverables would be typically key actions that need to happen at certain stages, right? Not necessarily phases of the development, but like, okay, build out this, right? If let's say, okay, they're down the street from me, there's an apartment complex going up. There's several buildings. Okay, so the project managers on site have to kind of track the progress. So they have all the individual buildings, they have all the different trades working on, so they have to track the trades progress and all the contractors. And as they go through day to day, they're probably check marking, okay, building 5's foundations laid. That's all 5 projects. Building A, they're laying the trusses of the roof. Building B, they're working on first floor, whatever, all the different pieces of it. So that I would assume is the deliverables, versus this list kind of goes into phases. It's definitely not stakeholders. It's not a list of stakeholders. So there's no people in there. And then it's not enumeration of a functional departments. There's no departments of a project in that list either. So it's either project phases or deliverables. I'm leaning towards deliverables. Yeah, I thought I would get this one wrong the second I kind of committed to A, but I needed in my thought process to kind of like actually verbally state it and like actually commit to something. I try to make sure in my word vomity that I don't get too wild in my analyses, that I can still come to a reasonable singular conclusion on something. I know when it comes to studying and the way I like to study, I like to make sure that I understand and encode all these questions and all these frameworks and stuff like that into my mind. So I'm usually grasping at a lot of different encoding fundamentals. So I still like to make sure when I'm doing the practice quizzes that I'm actually still coming to a singular conclusion. So that as I stated it, I was like, I bet it's phases now that I just said it and committed to it. I felt like my gut wasn't in it like the second it left my mouth. This is the second time deliverables has come up in a assessment. It came up in intro to IT on my last quiz, and it had to do with kind of IT database planning. So I knew it was it's not surprising that it's coming up again, but because I didn't I don't typically go through all the coursework, so I've been trying to piece together what that term means. And from the kind of the outright understanding of the word, a deliverable, I would assume, just like any thing that gets delivered to your house, a deliverable when it comes to a plan or some kind of developmental process, a deliverable would be something you're producing throughout the process of the development. So like building something can take a very long time, and I'm sure at a certain point as a contractor you're paid to execute on a specific piece, and they want to make sure that that specific piece that you've been contracted to build out is completed. And so that would be my understanding of what a deliverable is. And like you stated, the deliverable is like the specific thing. To use the analogy for the construction site, the concrete guys finishing the foundation, the framers building out a floor, putting in trusses, finishing roofing and stuff like that. So those would be deliverables versus phases. Yeah, I got it. Cool. Deliverable is a tangible, verifiable output of the project. Cool. All right, question 18. For the following collapsed work breakdown structure, WBS, for project O, as in Oscar, the project steering committee held a phase gate review of the feasibility results. That review determined that the project's proposed design would be obsolete before it would reach the marketplace. Okay, very similar table. It's got two fields, WBS ID, same numbering, sequential pattern through the rows, description. At row 2, I'm just name them out again. Project O, project started, feasibility, design, development, manufacturing, distribution, and project completed. All right, question. Which action should the project manager initiate? A, crashing the project schedule by asking for more resources. B, fast-tracking the schedule by altering procedure to successor relationships. C, determining the project as soon as possible and releasing the project's resources. And D, looking for ways to make the design less costly. I would say D is out. Due to context of this story, the table is helpful, but you have an issue on this project. The steering committee has conducted some kind of review, doesn't really matter. The feasibility results, okay, are stating that now it doesn't really give context of why they've determined the project's proposed design would be obsolete before it reached the market. That's a weird thing to state. So let's see if we can isolate that. I'm not quite sure what that context typically means. I don't know if it's like a building thing, whether it's like out of code, or they're trying to develop a product that would meet marketplace and they feel like it would not hit the market at the right time, so the proposed designed plan would, they've determined it's obsolete. So the answer A focuses on condensing the schedule and asking for more resources. B is again condensing the schedule, but by altering procedure or successor relationships. And C, terminating the project as soon as possible and releasing the project's resources. C C seems like it would be okay. It seems like the most likely thing. They would just terminate the project, and whatever resources were left, they would just allow it to go to into the entity, the business entity that's trying to do this. If they're doing things at this scope, they're probably a pretty big company, so they could probably utilize the resources. So that might be a thing. If the design would be obsolete before it reaches the market, I'm thinking A. If they can get the project schedule pushed and get more resources, maybe this thing can get built out beforehand. I that's my best assumption. Fast tracking the schedule by altering procedures doesn't seem, and then by altering predecessor or successor relationships. Yeah, I don't know if that's a viable option either. So D and B definitely don't seem viable. C seems like okay. It seems like the most realistic thing that this company would do. But as a person that is trying to, what action should the project manager initiate? I don't know. I mean, that depends on their what they want. But I would say I would go with A. Yeah, you extracted that perfectly. Yeah, A and C, I was both pretty solid on. Um, Again, the question doesn't really give a lot of context about all the realistic scenario of what's going on. I have no idea what the project manager's overall goal is. It's just kind of giving a generalized assumption, and you've kind of laid that out perfectly. It's like this phase gate review has deemed this unfeasible, so really the proper thing would just to be terminated and just not even bother. Um, okay. All right, question 12. Place the project activities in order of occurrence from first one to last five. Select your answer from the pull down list. So there's five things to pull that have tabs. Each tab I can select the number one through five. Now instead of questions A through D, well, none of these questions are labeled A through D. I just apply those so you can have an identifying number when I'm reading through all the different answers. And then we can actually like visually just grab onto one quicker. This one's just a bunch of different row items in a list. Okay, so A, developing the work breakdown structure. B, capturing lessons learned. C, working to produce project deliverables. D, collecting consumer requirements. And E, customers evaluating the project outcomes. All right, so let me work through that. First step through the last. I would say let's figure out the end point. Capturing lessons learned, so that would be probably a pretty good last step. So let's put that at 5 for now. These are not hard condensed spots. I'm just trying to localize and work through the list. Consumer evaluating the project outcomes, or customers evaluating the project outcomes. That would definitely become, you would need customer feedback and outcomes before you want to do lessons learned. So we can assign that one to 4 for now. Collecting customer requirements. I don't have anything to question that one. I would put that one early because we haven't really talked about anything to develop yet. So let's put that at 1 for now. And I like to work at the strong ends before I can kind of change. Working to produce project deliverables seems like a pretty good solid middle for now, so we can put that at 3. And developing the work breakdown structure. So yeah, we would definitely do that after. Well, that would actually probably be first. Thinking because you'd probably want to. The work breakdown structure is going to encapsulate the entire plan of action essentially. So we've already gotten to the point of where stakeholders have initiated this project and now have figured out a demand. So now they're trying to make a product fit. So they've already initiated it. So collecting data is important, but they need to actually create the blueprint of what it is they want to do. So the work breakdown plan is actually typically it's like part of like the creating of the planning phase without a fully executed like actual blueprint of what it is you're building yet. And so collecting customer data, I think, actually goes into the work breakdown structure. So you would want to break that. You want to put that one first. So let's change some things. Okay. So I listed things as follows. Developing the work breakdown structure. 1. Capturing lessons learned. 5. Working to produce project deliverables. 3. Collecting the customer requirements. 2. Customer evaluations, evaluating the project outcomes. 4. So the reason I did that kind of structure is you want to initiate, plan, execute, and then close. And essentially that's the framework I took from the IT thing. So it was like, even though it was IT related, that's the developmental phases that you want to go through when you're building something. And so I try to piece each part of that to that thing. So working to produce project deliverables was kind of in the execution phase. Capturing lessons learned is kind of at the capture phase. You've already built something out. Customer evaluation of project outcomes. Again, those two go hand in hand, but typically you want customer feedback before you figure out what your lessons learned was. So lessons learned is at that closing phase. And then work breakdown structure is that first thing after the initiation. And then collecting customer requirements is going to be helpful for your planning and your development and your engineering. I was close. So collecting customer requirements would be more at the initiation phase. Got it. So I messed up on 1 and 2. Developing the work breakdown structure is not the first thing. It's a nice little framework. Ask, plan, build, show, reflect. So ask would be like, hey, I have the capacity of building something. What do you want? I'm a builder. What kind of things do you want? Okay, and then plan it, evaluate it, get customer feedback, and then build it out, get some more feedback, test it, show them, again, more feedback if necessary, if you want to go in that detail, and then reflect, and then if re-engineering needs to happen, boom. Or if not, close it out. All right, question 21. In Project A, the contract specifies that time is very important. All the scope must be completed or the project will fail. The project's objective requires the project team to work as quickly as possible. Which triple constraint can be adjusted to permit the project team to work as quickly as possible? Which triple constraint? Keyword, triple constraint. And then permit project team to work as quickly as possible. So A, price, B, time, C, incentives, and D, cost. To keep things simple, B is time. So if you want to pick something to adjust that would permit a work of team to work as quickly as possible, freeing up the time. Not freeing up the time, but what's the thing? I guess cost. I was going at my first thought was actually like pumping in more labor, essentially. So it's hard to calculate really what the effect of labor can do, but the way I typically think of it is like you can think of things through single man hours, and you can also think of like a group. So like each man gets paid at a certain rate. They can work a certain amount of time. If you work like construction is very like time heavy. So I'm not quite sure of all the different breakdowns companies utilize, but typically they have to figure out how many guys am I going to have working on this at any point in time? What's the time duration that I want to shoot for that can maximize my profit incentives? And then how much is that person willing to pay? Okay, so I mean, I can build things out solely without a team, and it could be done cheaper, but it would typically take more time if I'm working by myself. You pump more people into it, you can essentially exponentially increase your output theoretically, but again, like that's assuming that each person operates on the same efficiency standards. So it's hard to predict, but so for this one, again, I don't know any that I typically work backwards on all these tests. So I usually don't have any course material understanding. So I'm just trying to pair it to stuff I already know. So time, you can't really free up time, but you can free up like the costs of time. So if you want to pump more people on a project, you allow them to either add more people or let them work overtime, which adds more time of day that they can work, essentially. And both essentially affect the overall cost. So that's where I'm getting at in here. Price is already predetermined. Keep it profitable, you're trying to keep costs low to work under that price. Your customer also dictates the time frame that they want things built at. That's a kind of negotiated effect. So time can't really be adjusted unless the customer's willing to adjust it. You can change incentives. Incentives doesn't really work for this context, I think. I think the best one's cost. Scope, time, cost. Okay. Okay, so the pillar is scope, time, and cost for a project. The triple constraints for the project lifestyle. So to think from both ends of a project, from the customer and the builder. Okay, those things are intertwined in the essentially air quotes contract or the terms of the purchase build out agreement. Scope would be what is built. Time would be the time frame of it's delivered to the customer, and cost would be the overall cost the customer pays. Okay, and obviously that's the overall amount that the builder is getting paid. So the builder has to execute the build out in the time. So there's kind of a couple things happening. Scope encapsulates what's built. Okay, person wants it built by someone, whether it's their team of people or a contractor building it. Okay, so someone wants something built. Okay, so customer has something built, they're paying to do it. People are building stuff. Okay, so that's the scope. Time frame of the people to build things. Customer lays out their time frame. Sometimes this time can be soft, sometimes it's rigid. It depends on the agreement terms. There can be a little bit back and forth, and obviously there can be a little bit back and forth on the cost. Okay, so that's the little triangle. Now thinking about it, this is like the biggest gripe I've heard all construction guys talk about all day long. Can't deliver in the I can't deliver that in the what you want in the time frame or at the cost that you want. So it's usually on the reverse side. Okay, so I'm going through. Okay, so project A, the contract specifies that time is very important. Okay, so the biggest one would be time. All the scope must be completed or the project will fail. The project objective requires the project team to work as quickly as possible, which triple constraint can be adjusted to permit the team the project team to work as quickly as possible. Well, if the time is important, scope must be completed, otherwise the project will fail. So it's a triangle, okay? So just like any triangular vector, if you have, let's say you have the angle, you're trying to adjust the angle of something, which would be the pairing, and they have the legs, you'd have to adjust the opposite side, whichever ones are not fixed. So time and scope are pretty fixed. It has to be completed, and time is very of essence. So those two legs are fixed, so the only thing left would be the last one, cost. So cost would be adjusted, right? I liked my last second triangle analogy. I wasn't gonna get to that kind of thinking until I paired the triple constraint. That triple and constraint keywords kind of guided me into, well, how does trigonometry essentially work, right? Get out of the real world relational stuff and just think of this like literally a triangle. Like the analogy fits perfect. If you have two sides of the triangle and they're completely fixed, you have only one last thing that can be can utilize and move. So it's figuring out the opposite side of whatever triangular vector sides or angular sides that you can move. So if I come up across a question like this again, I'd have to do the exact same things. Hey, triple constraint, scope, price, cost. Try to identify what is movable in the question, or not movable. So kind of lay things out very binary. Since I am streaming this study session, build out give me an image or whatever, some kind of rendering, so for the viewers that can see what my mental framework of what I just did. It's going to be a little bit complicated to plot that. I don't want to do that. All right. I'm not going to do never mind. Moving on. All right, question number 70. The customer of a project validates that the project scope has been completed, all invoices have been paid, and expected benefits have been realized. Which closure practice does this describe? The customer validates the project scope has been completed, all invoices have been paid, and the expected benefits have been realized. Okay, so A, iteration completion, B, phase completion, C, deliverable completion, and D, stage completion. All right, so since this one is related to the customer's end, and the customer is identifying that the thing that he wanted built is built to his liking or his scope, he has verified that all invoices have been paid, and he has verified that all the expected benefits have been realized. So he's checking the build out work. Okay. So this is not an iteration completion. So we have no context of whether this is like a rebuild or a fix of anything. This is kind of a phase completion, but the customer should be oblivious to the phases and the stage. That part doesn't relate to them. They're not the project manager or the builder or the contractor of this thing. So they're not in charge of phase tracking or stage tracking. So he's just checking his end of it, which is deliverable completions. And so I think C is the best answer. I will go with C. Question 62. A general contractor is managing a construction project that will add a new conference room to an existing office building. The project was documented in a fixed price contract that specified a completion date. The contract includes damages clause imposing a late completion penalty if the conference room is not ready for use by the due date. 1 month into the implementation, the customer wants to modify the room's lighting equipment. The requested change will delay the project's critical path by 3 months. Which process should be used to maintain the existing baseline? Which process should be used to maintain the existing baseline? A, absorbing the change request in the baseline for the time and the cost. B, using the risk management system to process change requests. C, using the change management system to influence performance. Or D, focusing on the original scope. All right. So, in real build out terms, with all this context, contractor's trying to build something. And the customer is fixed on making sure that contractually wise that there's a price to pay if they cannot deliver on something. Well, if to protect the general contractor, there should have been a clause stating, hey, you're extending my build out time, so flex on my completion time as well should be the most realistic thing that happens. That question does not have any context on this. So I don't A is talking about absorbing the change request into the baseline. So that makes pretty good sense. That the change request should be part of it. So it's like, hey, if it's fixed, you're pushing it back. We should push the completion time back as well to implement your requests. The risk management system process change requests using the change management system to influence performance. The change management system would be part of the process, but I like A the best. I have no, just because of the term absorbing, really, it fits on my understanding of how this project should fit. In a nice, easy world, everyone should be kind to each other. If the customer opposed these changes to a builder, they should be willing to soften their time frame. So a new contract should be adjusted with a new date on good terms. If they're complete assholes, they probably won't. And so that will completely change the context of what needs to happen. But based off of what we know, I think absorbing the change request in the baseline for a time and cost recosting of everything. I think everything else was related is not related. Focusing on the original scope is not a good thing. You can keep working on it, but you need to work on these side changes as well, because you have your project and you have these new changes and you need to figure out how they're going to affect your current plan of action. Typically, work changes happen midstream when you already have things, and so there tends to be a lot of backtracking when it finally gets approved on certain ends. Integrated change control. Question is testing when a customer requests a change that impacts scope, schedule, and cost. What process handles it? Dissecting your option. Absorbing the change request into the baseline. Sounds tempting, but that's actually what you don't do. Don't just fold it in quietly. You must formally evaluate, approve it before it becomes part of the baseline. Okay, that makes sense. Using the risk management system, risk equals uncertain events. This is not uncertain. It's a formal change request. Wrong pillar. Using the change management system to influence performance. Bingo. Change management system, formal change process. Control process is how you evaluate, approve, and re-baseline if necessary. Okay, so use the change management protocols. And nope, ignores the approved changes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. The questions in this competency group, are they going to be related to change management? All right, so I clicked a close question. A project was question 60. A project was authorized as a operational necessity to repair a design flaw in the date field on a computer system that constrains the year number to 2 digits instead of permitting the year to be indicated with 4 digits. Oh no, big problem. During the execution of the activity concerned with identifying the affected software, 5 relevant software modules were discovered that had not been included in the scope baseline. The project team must adjust the baselines to include the omitted scope. Which change management phase does this scenario describe? A, upgrading the change. B, reinforcing the change. C, managing the change. And D, preparing for the change. Okay, so the first part of the first sentence was just a very, very long run-in situation of a project. There's a problem with a software that's doing some kind of processing in since they use the word field, so it's some kind of spreadsheet software. So the year displays year data in 2 digits, and it needs to be set up in 4. So they want to know 4-digit year. Cool. So they're hired a third party, and during the change management or during the execution of the affected software, they've found more software that is affected. So I guess the initial build out figured out it was only this software, but other pieces were omitted. Now the team must adjust the baseline to include the omitted scope. So they're doing a revision of the scope. Very smart, very responsible. Okay. So what stage of the change management process are they upgrading, reinforcing, managing, or preparing? They already executed. That was one term that was set out during. So they're not preparing for any change. The change was the problem in the software for the scope. Actually, no. There was already the software build out. They're contracted to fix the problem. They've identified a change that needs to. I would say they're upgrading a system because it's already pre-built. So they're not reinforcing, they're not managing anything, preparing for a change. So the key tricky part of this concept is the software is already built out. There's a bug in their system. And so they're contracting a repair team to fix the bug. So I don't know if it's like a new project of an existing software that's already been utilized for a long time, or if this is new and they're essentially, it's already in the middle of its project and they're having a kind of a third tier, they're going back. So that's where I'm lost on the term preparing or upgrading. To me, it feels like upgrading from the context of the question. Step-by-step logic. Not preparing. D. That's because the change is identified and approved. Here, they already found 5 extra modules. Not reinforcing. B. Reinforcing means locking in the change after implementation, training, adoption, and benefits. Not upgrading. A. That's a red herring. Upgrading sounds right in real life, fixing software, but PMI don't use upgrade as a formal change management term. Managing the change. This is the correct fit. You're adjusting the scope baseline to include omitted modules. Exactly what managing change means. Okay. Okay. I think we're going to call that good for the night. I think we made some pretty good progress on working through this. These questions are quite complicated, so this is going to be a pretty intense kind of study session. I think I got a good framework where I get to things, but I think there are a lot of things I have to kind of work through. These questions give a lot of context, so there's a lot of things to work through, but I think I'm getting there. It's not quick, but it's kind of close. Okay. All right, everyone. I'm closing it out here. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Hope you learned a little bit about how to integrate. Use that study button. Test it out. This worked out pretty good. The study button worked out pretty good for me. It seemed to, with the right built-in context, starting off, like scrubbing the web, I think it was able to kind of get at things logically, and with having a framework of what the test material is about, having an idea of the course material, since I gave it this specific course, I was able to kind of refine my thoughts without giving me extra things to kind of linger onto, without having to cover so much this grand course material. So cool. I give it a thumbs up so far. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.